Hola, oi, hello, it's your girl, M Rich, the Global Black Girl on Instagram, same name. I just wanted to take a minute to answer some questions. I have a wonderful young lady who follows me on Instagram named Humility and Grace, and she asked some really good questions that I thought I should address in a video. So here we go. She asked me, how did I find my house here? This is a really great opportunity to kind of discuss some things that people don't really know when you come here. Costa Rica is beautiful. However, finding your home, figuring out where you want to live, isn't as straightforward. Now, I decided this time, because I lived in Brazil for 5 years, which I promise I'm going to get into in another video. It was just 5 years, and it's a lot to process, and so much happened. So I'm definitely going to do a video series on that. That's coming. But one of the things I learned from that experience was that part of the reason why I felt comfortable leaving, I didn't want to come back to the States. Let's just get that out of the way. However, I didn't have a home. I always had in the back of my mind, I could just go back to the States. I'll just go back to Cali. I'll just go back to LA. And that's what I did. And, given it the place in my life I was 23 when I moved there. And my kids were really young. It made sense that that was kind of my default. But this time around, I definitely wanted to allow myself more stability in housing. We moved probably 5 times when we were in Brazil, for various reasons. And so that was really stressful and added to the distress of being in the country. And I didn't want to go through that again. So we decided that we wanted to buy a home. There is no MLS. There's no official government regulated multiple listing service in this country. That does not exist. You may do some searches on different real estate agent sites and they'll say MLS. They're just using that as a tagline because there is no official MLS, nor is there any governing body that is in charge of real estate agents. Keep that in mind. So finding the right one may be a challenge. And it also means even if you have one that you really like, they may not have access. Well, they won't have access to all the possible properties that are available. So what I did, and I will be linking some of the sites that I used, I did it myself. I'm very much so a do-it-yourselfer, especially when it came to this. I researched morning, noon, and night for a house. I looked for I looked on all the platforms. I looked through all the real estate agent websites I could find. Most of the time, they don't actually have pictures listed. I was on Craigslist. I was on absolutely everything. And what I would find a lot was that there would be one house, it'd be the same house, and 5 or 6 different agents' names listed, depending on the platform. I contacted all of them to see who was actually going to be able to show me the property, because oftentimes they can't. And the other thing is that a lot of owners are difficult to get a hold of. You have to contact a real estate agent, see if they're available, and then they have to contact the owner to see if they're willing to even show you the property. So it can be kind of a challenge. If you do decide that you want to buy, it is one of the things I offer. I am a international relocation specialist. I have a small team and we work in multiple countries. And we, try to help depending on what your needs are for relocation, because it can be challenging trying to get all of that arranged and together. So it's just something to keep in mind, but you can absolutely do it yourself. Even if you don't have a handle on the language, I used Translator and sent tons of emails so that when I was here and I had those 2 weeks to look for houses, I managed to look at over 40 houses in the span of 10 days. It can be done. So now you may want to rent. Same thing though. Rentals are listed the same way that houses are. So you may not see everything that's available, but your real estate agent can help you with that. Craigslist is a great resource. Facebook expat. There's a lot of different expat sites depending on the country that you're looking for, including Costa Rica, and they have rentals and homes for purchase. there's a lot of room for negotiation. So if you see a house that's for sale, maybe it's been for sale for a long time. They might be willing to rent it to you. Another great option, if you're not quite sure if you want to stay, is to do Airbnb or some short term leasing. Costa Rica is a small country. It has less than 5 million people. However, it has a Caribbean side, it has a Pacific side, it has cloud forests, it has rainforests, it has so many different microclimates. We live in the Central Valley in the mountains. There is no one size fits all for this very small country. And so part of your evaluation of where you want to be may be to spend a month or two in these different microclimates. Santa Ana is very dry. Escazú in the bottom in San Rafael is hotter than up in the mountains. Then you have Cavite and Limon on the Caribbean side, and you have Punta Arenas and Jaco and Uvita and then there's Perez Zeldon, which is like the mountain ranges close to the Pacific side. So there's so many different communities. One of the things that you will find that might be really frustrating, I know it was frustrating for me, was that I would look up, I don't know, whatever De Santo, because there's tons of little neighborhoods, something De Santo. There's 15,000 of them. And unless you know the canton, which is like the neighborhood that it's in, or the small little, it's the country, Costa Rica, and then the city, San Jose, and then all the little neighborhoods within. It can be very difficult to find where you're looking, even if you're trying to look for yourself. I did a lot of Google Maps. I asked for locations so I could kind of pinpoint where it was. But this is one of those things. It's one of the little idiosyncrasies of being Costa Rica, given that we don't really have addresses, which is kind of cool. I like not getting mail. It's the best. Mail is invasive. So those are some really good options for housing. You want to do as much evaluation before you come as possible, so that when you come, you can make the most out of the time. Not everybody, and I don't assume that I'm talking to people that are independently wealthy and, don't have to be budget conscious. I definitely have never been in that position. I have to be very thoughtful about every penny. And so I did as much research as I could before I got here, so that when I got here, I got the most out of the time. So the second thing I'm going to get into real quick, I really hope I don't offend, but I have to keep it 100. The food. I'm an LA girl. I'm used to really good food. Gotta say, ingredients here, freshest in the world. You'll find all kind of fruit and vegetables that you've never had before. There's so many great options, but I'm used to explosive flavor. I'm used to sauce. I'm used to condiments. And that's just not really a thing. You can find casados, gallo pinto. Gallo pinto is rice and beans with, whatever meat you want on the side for breakfast, with a slab of cheese or whatever else. But when you get into like other food, I've really struggled to find stuff that I like. Now in Escazú, and in Perez Zeron, and I think in Santa Ana, if you just have a hankering for Carl's Jr., or you want Taco Bell, or you want KFC, or you want Johnny Rockets, or any of those things, or if you want an Indian food, there's an amazing Mediterranean like shawarma place. There's a handful of really, really good places, but depending on where you're coming from, depending on what your tastes are, I just have to keep it real. You may want to get used to, and I think with all this quarantine, a lot of us have gotten used to cooking. It's great. It saves you money, and you actually can make what you want. So we bake and cook and, all of that. And it's been a pleasure. So, there's positives and negatives to everything. But I have been asked that, like, how's the food? And I can't lie, I'm not impressed. So sorry about that. Costa Rica, but so I have to be real. What else? Housing, food. Oh, cars. I think we should talk about that another time. Long story short, Cars are very expensive. This country has really high import taxes, and they definitely take it out on you when you want to buy a car. Resale values are not that different than when you bought it new. You can find a 1995 whatever, and it's going to cost you $10 or $12,000. It sounds crazy, but it's the truth. A lot of people kind of debate, should I bring my car, or should I just buy one when you get here? Whenever you throw yourself on the mercy of customs or any government agency, you never know. You might meet somebody on a good day who decides, you just pay this little bit of taxes. What they say is that they have their own blue book. It's called a black book of values for the car in the year, that the make and model that it is, and they charge you the taxes based on that amount. However, I have heard horror stories from enough people that isn't always the case. It's the same thing with importing your items, which I got to do a video on. We actually imported a big 20 foot, 40 foot, 20 or 4, I don't remember, it was a while ago, a 20 or 40 foot container from Los Angeles through Long Beach here, and got it delivered to the house, and that was a whole saga of a mess. All of the furniture in my house came from the States. Furniture I have found here to be lower quality and very expensive, even if it's made, even if it's handmade, because taxes are very high. There's a tax called the IVI. You can look that up. It's 13% on top of whatever service you got, and that was recently introduced, but taxes are high. So it's just those kind of things. Housing tends to be cheaper, and of course, this is based on me as a Californian and what I consider to be cheap or affordable. You can easily find 2-bedroom houses in Escazú, which is, like I said, one of the most expensive areas in the country. You can easily find a 2-bedroom apartment for 1,000, sometimes 800, depending on the size of it. You can get a house with a pool and a yard for 1,200, 1,300. And of course, on the outskirts, like, I know there are people who have 2-bedroom apartments on the Caribbean side for $300-$400. So there's quite a range. Really depends on where you decide you want to live and what kind of lifestyle you're looking for. But I can help with as much as I can help with. I'm just trying to do my best to give you guys a little bit of an overview of some of the things that you should consider. Right now, I am compiling like a questionnaire for you to fill out. It'll be a free download, and it'll go over like certain questions that you need to ask yourself if you're considering international relocation, what your motivations are, what questions you have, what kind of lifestyle you want. How do you want to feel in the place that you're in? I knew, because I had lived by the beach in Brazil, I knew that I wanted to be in the mountains with all this green. I knew it because I had thought to ask. So many of us in these big cities around the world, we're just happy to get an apartment. We're just happy to have somewhere to lay our heads. And so the greater concept of our lifestyle doesn't usually come up. But now, when you're thinking about giving yourself freedom, you should think about those things. How do you want to feel? What kind of environment would make you the happiest? I wanted a lot of green space. I wanted land. I wanted to be able to have animals. I wanted to be relatively close to, the city, because, I knew, even though I had lived abroad before, my husband has not. And so I knew that it would be easier for him to acclimate if we were somewhat close. And, so, it's just things to consider. I'm really glad that you guys sat here and listened to me ramble. I hope something that I said was helpful. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, or you can DM me on Instagram at the Global Black Girl. I will be getting into, probably the next one, I'll be getting into the community. We are actively building a community here. We have land. We are openly inviting all those who are interested in expatriating to Costa Rica to come here. If you want to exercise or feel like you have room to exercise your rights and live the way that will be more in line with your style of life, this would be a great place. And those of us that are concerned with racism and violence that we experience in the States and in Europe, racism I have experienced all over the world, but I've only seen it be deadly in a few places. Racism in Costa Rica is not deadly. I don't worry about my children. I don't worry about my sons. I don't worry about, myself being out. I don't worry about those interactions. I've had interactions with police. I've had interactions with government officials. It's just very different. So I have experienced racism. It exists everywhere, but it's not deadly. And so for me, the trade-off was absolutely worth it. And I would not trade this for anything. So, I was kind of all over the place this video. I'm sorry about that. I hope what I've said has been helpful. And ciao, hasta luego. See you later.